Hey guys, welcome to today's video on Gut Health 101 and really how food and your lifestyle are going to impact the way that you feel and your energy. So if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Elika. I'm an energy optimization coach and a trusted advisor for purpose-driven leaders who want to have way more energy to give a greater impact in this world. So if you have been experiencing brain fog, you've been having anxiety or even depression, you've noticed that your energy is crashing no matter how much coffee you take, and you feel that you might not be addressing the root cause, then this video is for you. So I want to go firstly into what is gut health about? And hopefully it has been on your radar because in the last 10 years, I would say, this has been one of the primary focuses on health, and specifically the nutrition has started to move towards this, which is brilliant. But like so many things, there are things that we've done for thousands and thousands of years that have really addressed the gut health issues that we face today. And I just want to make sure that in today's video, you've got the education and the understanding, and as always, the lifestyle hacks that you can think about implementing to make sure that you're addressing the root cause of any ailments that you don't feel seem to be addressed, especially if you go down more modern or even traditional forms of medicine and medical treatment that doesn't necessarily treat the root cause, but focuses on the symptoms. So let's start with this brain-gut connection. So it's often called the gut-brain axis. And I want you to imagine that you have over 500 million neurons in the gut and 100 billion neurons or more in the brain. So these neurons are like signals, like if you think about hormones and we call them neurotransmitters that affect the way that you feel. You might know about serotonin, that feel-good hormone, or even dopamine that keeps you motivated. These are all examples that come from these transmissions that we have. And that highway, I want you to imagine a highway, like literally a road that goes from your brain to your gut. And we call this highway the vagus nerve, one of the largest nerves in the body. And that nerve literally creates that signaling of messages up and down from the gut to the brain. So when we look at how medicine was normally approached, we looked at the body as like these separate parts that were not connected. So you didn't have the brain surgeon thinking about the gut and that messaging that's happening in between. But now we really start to study the brain as or the body, should I say, holistically, and we see the accumulation of our parts and the signals and how that all works together. And that's really helping us to address gut issues. And that's what this conversation around the gut-brain axis is really about. So in the gut is carrying most of these microbes. We refer to microbiome as this family of bacteria and viruses and more different species. And predominantly this sits in the gut. So it's said that you have over 500 or more species of bacteria that sit in the gut. That's about 3 pounds of bacteria just sitting in the gut. And so that is an ecosystem. So I want you to imagine all the ecosystems that you can think of in the world, like the Amazon or the Great Barrier Reef. And imagine how things can really impact the ecosystem. If you take away one species of animal or you change the weather, think about climate change and the conversation of how that's affecting the Amazon or other ecosystems in the world. And we want to imagine our own body and having that ability to affect your ecosystem by the foods you eat and the lifestyle choices that you make every day. So in the gut, I'm going to really simplify the bacteria just to say good or bad, just for the case of this. And the good bacteria needs to fuel itself of things that it needs to thrive. The gut bacteria is really making sure that you get those really good signals. There's the serotonin, 70% of serotonin is in the gut, that feel-good hormone, right? And it's really making sure that everything in the gut feels like the gut. Think about this as your main part of your digestion system, ability to absorb, assimilate, and eliminate the foods that you eat. So in the gut, you really want to make sure that those signals that are going in there are getting the right messages through the good bacteria. So the good bacteria's food source is fiber. And if you think about all diets, doesn't matter which diet you're on, they all seem to focus on making sure that you at least have fruit and vegetables. Now, of course, with the keto diet, it's a less focus on fruits, especially those that are higher in sugar. So they focus more on, low GI or low sugar fruits like citrus or berries. But these diets, one thing they seem to have in common is to get you to focus on fruits and vegetables. And that's because you get that roughage, that fiber from the fruits and vegetables. And that creates a food source, in simple terms, a food source for the good bacteria. Now, you can eat, of course, those foods that create that give you that fiber, but you can also feed yourself good bacteria as well. And that's when we look at traditional methods of how we used to prepare foods that naturally did that. And the main one here is fermented foods. So when we think about the fermented foods in all different cultures, we had all our own versions of fermented foods. I think about the kimchi from the Koreans or the sauerkraut from Eastern Europeans. In Asia, we have achar. Everyone had their own version of fermented foods. And then I think about things like the breads, like the Indians had the dosa. And then I think about the yogurts, like the Greek have Greek yogurt. And then some of the drinks that we have, like kombucha or milk kefir or water kefir. These are all ways of introducing good bacteria into the body. So if you imagine there's two ways now that you can have, two strategies. One is eating predominantly fruits and vegetables. And I lean on the vegetable side just because with the vegetables, you have the fiber without most of the sugar content that you would have in fruit. And then you have this other way of approaching it, which is also, or in addition to, eating good bacteria through your fermented foods. And so making sure that you get that double dosage of health into the gut. And this is things that we've done for thousands of years, that we just need to revive and go back to ensure that really healthy, good bacteria gets fed the right food. Now, when we look at the bad bacteria, the obvious food source for the bad bacteria is sugar or processed foods, which contain a lot of sugar. Or if you think about flour, which all carbohydrates convert to sugar, and flour is so refined that it tends to convert a lot faster to sugar. And this is a fuel source for your gut, for your bad bacteria. Now, I always like to say, if you imagine a wolf and you imagine a cute, like puppy, which one is the strongest? Now, you can imagine it could be the wolf, but the truth is, it's the one that you feed the most. And so if you think about in the modern day, how a lot of us are consuming our foods and the consumption patterns of what we eat for breakfast or to break the fast, a lot of us are consuming toast, breakfast cereals, pastries, and the main food source in those, the main ingredients is flour or sugar. So you are feeding your bad bacteria first. Now, gut health is really about, on a simple level, getting a nice balance between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. So you want to make sure that the good bacteria, when you break your fast, whatever time of day that is, that's the one that's getting fed first. And that's the one that is in abundance of food so that it becomes the strongest. And that's really what we're trying to aim to do within the good bacteria and with the gut health. And if you think about processed foods and the refined sugars, not only this spike in the blood sugar, creating an acidic environment which bad bacteria thrives in, you're also then making that bad bacteria grow. And you think about things like SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. This tends to be in people that have diets that are high in processed foods, high in refined sugars. So getting that balance is a way that you can manage your ecosystem, so your ecosystem internally is thriving. Now, let's move on to that to talk about then the symptoms that you may be experiencing that can be addressed. So one of the obvious ones is bloating or gas, or you may even feel that in your gut, it feels like food is fermenting. And this is where you want to really therefore hone in on good health, good gut health. So having an abundance of fiber-rich foods, taking a fermented food source every day, multiple fermented food sources every day if you can. And you may even want to supplement. Now, remember I say supplement, not replacement. Supplement with a really good live probiotic. And those probiotics should contain a prebiotic and it should contain a wide range of different bacteria. So you're really supporting that gut health. This probiotic culture that I kind of see now, where people are just taking it like another pill, so many of them are placebo. So many of them are dead by the time they get into the stomach, where the digestive system has to really get access to the live bacteria before it can really work abundantly. And so that's why I love going back to the traditional way of getting access to all of that live bacteria through fermented foods. But I do supplement with probiotic when I think that really the body really needs a lot of support, and especially when you've been through something that may have stripped the bad bacteria, the good bacteria, or out or both, like you've taken antibiotics, which really strips the body of the bacteria, good or bad, because it's not sophisticated enough to know the difference. That's where, obviously dialing down on, your gut health, the foods, the fermented foods, but also supplementing can be really helpful. Now, another one is brain fog. This is another symptom. So brain fog, or anything that could be feel like that your brain is not operating in its highest state. So that also can be anxiety. It can also be depression. It can also be memory. This is where you've got to think about that highway. You've got to think about the vagus nerve and what messages are coming from the gut all the way into the brain. Because again, if you're putting junk, processed foods, a lot of stress on the body through your lifestyle, overworking, not resolving issues in your relationships that are causing stress, these are all affecting the way that you feel, and then sending that communication up and down, and that can be affecting. And then you add on to that, all the wrong diet that you're eating every day. You can really understand, well, how can the brain be affected in the right way if the serotonin, 70% of serotonin is in the gut. The serotonin, that feel-good hormone, it's going to allow you to experience more peace, more joy. If it's not getting the right fuel source, how can our brain be sharp and focused if the food that goes into the gut is not the right fuel source to feed the good bacteria, to give the cells in the body, the thriving ecosystem in the body, the food source, that it's preferred food source? Then how can you imagine that the brain could be sharp and have the tools that it needs to be able to work well? And so these can be, again, a really good example of where you really need to dial in on what is the food source and the lifestyle changes that reduce stress in the body, so that you can have that beautiful connection of the gut, the brain axis being a beautiful highway of great signals that are coming through. Another symptom that I really see a lot is skin issues. Imagine the skin being the largest organ, and so therefore it's there to show you things that are happening underneath that you might not see. Yeah, you might feel them through bloating, through gas, through digestive issues, diarrhea, constipation. But you know how we are as humans. A lot of us, we have to experience a lot of pain before we will address it. And so our skin is one of those really, I think it's a really sophisticated way that the body has designed ourselves to go, okay, you're not addressing it. Let me make sure you see it all the time. So when I see psoriasis, I see acne, I see these skin disorders, breakouts constantly, I always want to think about that person's diet. What are they consuming that they're either intolerant to that's causing issues in their gut, like dairy, like wheat or gluten, that's creating that bloating for them that they're not addressing? What are they consuming that is processed foods, that's not their human being's diet, but it's not a food, it's a food product that's creating this disharmony in their ecosystem that's showing up on the skin? So any skin elements you really want to address looking at your gut health. So I think when I talk about the brain and the elements in the brain, the obvious signs that you experience in the feeling of the gut, and then the visual of the skin, these are really obvious indicators that are really going to help you to start thinking about, my starting place may be to start thinking about feeding the good bacteria in my body first, giving it the right foods, whole foods, minimally processed foods, lots of fiber. Think about cruciferous vegetables, like the green vegetables that are so rich in fiber. Think about slowly reducing the sugar that you get from processed foods or refined sugars, and replacing those with natural sugars, like sweeter vegetables that you could roast and give your body that, satisfy those cravings for sweetness, like low sugar fruits instead of maybe the tropical fruits like pineapples and mangoes that we love, just as you're kind of rebalancing that gut terrain and really supporting the gut to get back to its natural harmonious state. That's where you really want to start. So I hope this video has been really helpful, just to give you that kind of gut health 101 about what gut health is and where you can really start. I do have other videos on gut health that I did so long ago, but I felt like, I haven't talked about this for a long time. And sometimes in our urge for wellness and to, have way more energy, we forget the basics. And, we can jump in the ice baths, we can go in the saunas, do the infrareds. But if we don't address these root cause, if we go to the doctor and ask for the medicine, ask for the antibiotics because we're sick all the time, but we don't get to this, the dis-ease in the body creates disease, and disease thrives in an environment that is not being taken care of. Yeah. So I hope this is giving you a lot of places where to start. I am going to make sure that I link into the description box one of my first programs that I created. It's just such a beautiful video training. It's called the Good Gut Guide, and it's just a 10-day video, small videos. I think the longest video is like 10 minutes. So just imagine that every day for 10 days, you watch a small video that really teaches this and it just gives you in more of a easy to follow format, with recipes, with my shopping list, and just some resources around creating fermented foods as well, some recipes for that just can really help you to reset your gut and a good starting place for you. So I'll make sure and link the Good Gut Guide in the description box below. And if you like this video, please give it a like so many more people can really empower themselves to take control of their energy, so that they can really come to this world with a greater impact because they have the energy to do so. So please like or share to somebody that you absolutely know could benefit this. And generally, if you want to know about like incorporating habits into your lifestyle, as well as watching these videos, I share all of these in my newsletter, where I'm just genuinely sharing my life, my experiences, things that I'm doing with my clients. And it just can help you to solidify this information when you're on that path to having more consistent energy and being in overflow. So I've loved sharing this with you today, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.